The Velaran world was once beautiful, filled with silver oceans, bright green forests, and great floating cities that touched the sky. The people were proud, peaceful, and wise. For hundreds of years they lived without war, believing that knowledge and unity were the greatest powers in the universe. But peace has a strange weakness. It makes people forget what danger looks like. And when danger finally came, the Valarans were not ready for it. It started with a faint light in the night sky, a distant red glow that seemed harmless at first. But that glow grew larger, and soon it became the fire of enemy ships descending through the atmosphere. The attackers were known as the Dravok Empire, a brutal race that conquered worlds for resources and slaves. They came without warning, destroying communication satellites, burning cities, and poisoning the skies with their weapons. The Valarans tried to fight, but their weapons were old, their ships outdated. They had not prepared for war in generations. Within weeks, half of their world was turned to ash. Families ran from city to city searching for shelter. Entire towns disappeared under clouds of toxic gas. The Valaran Council, their world's leaders, watched as everything they had built for centuries began to collapse. They tried peace talks, sent messages into space, begged the Dravoks to stop. But the enemy did not want peace, they wanted control. The air became so poisoned that even breathing became painful. The oceans turned dark and lifeless. The forests burned day and night. It was the end of the Velaran civilization. In the capital city of Ralos, once a shining center of art and learning, the council gathered for what would be their final meeting. Around a long, curved table sat the last surviving leaders, tired, weak, and heartbroken. "We cannot fight anymore," said Elder Kale, the oldest among them, his voice trembling. "If we stay, we die. But if we go, maybe there is hope." The room fell silent. They all knew what he meant. There was talk of other worlds far away where intelligent life might exist. For years, scientists had watched a blue planet in a distant solar system, Earth. It was small but filled with energy, water, and signs of advanced civilization. Many thought it was only a legend, a place where war and peace fought side by side. But now, it was their last hope. A small ship was prepared in secret, built from the last working parts of their damaged technology. It was not meant for battle. It was a vessel of survival. Inside, they placed the most skilled members of their kind, scientists, diplomats, and a few young soldiers who still had strength left. The plan was simple: reach Earth, explain their tragedy, and beg for help. But the journey would be long and dangerous. Many believed they would not make it. When the ship was ready, thousands of Valarans gathered near the launch site. The ground was cracked and black from the fires of war, and the air was heavy with dust. Yet people still came, holding each other, whispering prayers. As the ship's engines roared to life, children cried and parents waved goodbye, knowing it might be the last time they ever saw their loved ones. The ship lifted off slowly, rising through the dark smoke into the stars, leaving behind a dying world that once shone like a jewel. Inside the ship, silence filled the cabin. The crew looked out the window, watching their planet grow smaller and smaller until it was just a pale dot among millions of others. Commander Aaron, the leader of the mission, clenched his hands and said softly, "We will find help." "We have to." His voice was steady, but his heart was breaking. None of them knew if Earth would understand their plea. None of them even knew if Earth would welcome them at all, but they had no other choice. Days turned into weeks as the ship traveled through cold, endless space. The crew took turns watching the navigation systems, recording data, and trying to send messages into nearby frequencies. They spoke often about what Earth might be like. Some imagined it as a paradise, green lands, blue oceans, and kind beings who would help them rebuild. Others were afraid. They had heard stories that humans could be violent, unpredictable, and territorial. "What if they see us as enemies?" asked Lyra, the youngest scientist on board. Aaron looked at her and said quietly, "Then we will show them we are not." As the journey went on, the ship's power began to weaken. Rations were running low and oxygen levels dropped. Sleep became difficult. In the long, dark nights, they could still hear the echo of their burning home in their dreams. The screams, the explosions, the cries for help that never came. But still, they pushed forward. Hope was all they had left. Finally, one day, the radar beeped. A small blue planet appeared on the screen. It was beautiful, glowing softly against the darkness of space. "That's it," Aaron whispered. "Earth." The crew stared at it in silence. Some cried, some smiled. After months of despair, they had reached the one place that could save them. But as they approached, something unexpected happened. Earth's defense systems detected them immediately. Alarms rang across their ship as warning signals flashed on the screen. Unidentified vessel detected. A robotic voice echoed through their speakers. The Valarans panicked. "They think we're invaders," shouted one of the pilots. Aaron quickly raised his hands and said, "Open communication. Send a peace signal now." They broadcasted a message in all known languages, pleading for the humans to listen. Moments later, the voice returned, calmer this time. "This is Earth Command. Identify yourselves," Aaron replied, his voice shaking. "We are the Valaran people. Our world has fallen. We come seeking peace and help." There was a long pause, then silence. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, a new voice came through. Human, strong, and surprisingly gentle. "Velaran ship, you are cleared to enter Earth orbit. We are sending a guide beacon. Welcome." Tears filled the crew's eyes. For the first time in years, they felt relief. They had found someone willing to listen. The ship followed the beacon and entered Earth's atmosphere. Through the windows, they saw blue oceans, white clouds, and continents covered with life. It was more beautiful than they had imagined. When they landed on a human base, they were greeted not by weapons but by people. Scientists, doctors, and diplomats wearing clean suits and warm smiles. The Valaran stepped out slowly, their silver skin reflecting the sunlight. The humans watched in quiet amazement, realizing that they were meeting another intelligent species for the first time. A tall human woman stepped forward and said softly, "You're safe now." Those words, simple yet powerful, made the Valarans break down. For years they had known nothing but war, loss, and fear. Now, at last, they had found hope again. As night fell over the base, the Valarans looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there was their destroyed home waiting to be reborn. They didn't know what kind of help Earth would offer, or if they could ever return. But one thing was certain, they were not alone anymore. And in the hearts of both humans and Valarans, a small spark began to glow, the beginning of a story that would change both worlds forever. When the Valaran ship landed on Earth, everything felt strange and silent. The air was thick, but it was clean. Unlike the burning smoke they had known back home, the ground beneath them felt alive, filled with small vibrations and sounds of human activity. The sky was bright blue, and for the first time in years, the Valarans could breathe without fear. Commander Aaron stood at the edge of the ramp as it lowered to the ground, his heart beating fast. He had no idea what kind of people he was about to meet. Would the humans help them or turn them away? As the doors opened fully, the first thing the Valarans saw were the humans. They stood in neat rows, dressed in uniforms that looked both strong and simple. Behind them were scientists, doctors, and soldiers. The Valarans were nervous, their silver-gray skin shimmering faintly in the sunlight. The humans didn't move for a few seconds. They simply looked, their faces filled with wonder and disbelief. It was humanity's first real contact with another intelligent species. Then a woman stepped forward. She had calm eyes, a confident voice, and a small badge on her chest that read Dr. Helen Carter, United Earth Science Division. She raised her hand slowly, showing she meant no harm. "Welcome to Earth," she said softly. Her voice was gentle, but every word carried weight. Aaron looked at her, unsure what to say, then placed his hand over his heart in the Valaran greeting gesture. "We come in peace," he said, his voice quiet but sincere. Dr. Carter nodded and smiled slightly. "Then you are welcome here." That single moment changed everything. The tension in the air softened. Human soldiers lowered their weapons. Scientists began whispering to each other, their curiosity overtaking their fear. Slowly, one by one, the Valarans stepped off their ship. Their movements were graceful, almost fluid, and their large eyes scanned every detail around them. The humans led them to a nearby facility surrounded by glass walls and white floors. It was clean, bright, and secure, a place built for both safety and study. Inside, the Valarans were given food, water, and medical attention. Though the food was strange to them, it was warm and comforting. They hadn't eaten a proper meal in weeks. While doctors checked their health, Earth scientists began to ask questions. Where did you come from? What happened to your planet? How long did you travel? The Valarans tried to explain as best they could, using both words and holographic images from their ship. They showed pictures of their world before and after the war. Beautiful floating cities now turned into black dust, oceans poisoned, children dying from toxic air. The room fell silent as the humans watched. Dr. Carter looked at Aaron and said quietly, "No one deserves this." Her voice trembled. "We will help you." Those words brought tears to many Velaran eyes. They were used to being ignored, hunted, betrayed. But now, for the first time, someone cared. The news of their arrival spread quickly across the world. People were shocked and fascinated. Some feared them. Others celebrated the meeting as the greatest discovery in human history. Governments held emergency meetings. Religious leaders called it a sign of destiny. Social media exploded with images and theories. But behind the noise, Earth's leadership quietly made a decision. Humanity would help the Velarans survive. Over the next few weeks, the Velarans began to learn about humans. They were amazed by Earth's diversity. So many different people, languages, and cultures. They visited human cities, escorted by scientists and soldiers. They saw tall buildings made of glass and metal, cars moving like streams of light, and people laughing, arguing, and living freely. To them, it felt like stepping into the future and the past at the same time. But not everyone welcomed them warmly. Some humans didn't trust them. News channels debated whether the Velarans might be spies or invaders. Protesters stood outside government buildings with signs that read, "Earth First," and "No More Strangers." Aaron watched these scenes on a screen one night and felt pain in his heart. "They fear what they don't know," Dr. Carter said beside him. "It will take time. We humans fear easily, but we also learn fast." Despite the fear, many humans worked day and night to help. Scientists studied Velaran technology, which was strange and elegant but incomplete. Earth engineers were excited. They saw ways to combine human strength with Velaran design. "Your ships are beautiful," said one engineer named Raj Patel. "They think in curves and light, not hard lines like ours. Together we can make something better." The Velarans, too, learned from humanity. They saw how humans adapted to every problem. Where Velarans would spend decades perfecting a single idea, humans would fail 100 times and still keep trying. "You fight with your hearts," Lyra told Dr. Carter one day. "That is something my people forgot long ago." In the weeks that followed, the Velarans began sharing their own knowledge. They taught humans about energy crystals that could power entire cities without pollution, and about medical technologies that could heal damaged organs in hours. In return, humans taught them about strategy, resilience, and rebuilding. Slowly, an alliance began to form, not of power but of respect. Still, there were challenges. The Velarans had come seeking help to rebuild their world, but their enemies, the Dravok Empire, were still out there. Earth's governments were cautious. "We can't risk war," said General Roberts during a council meeting. "Our world is still recovering from its own conflicts." But Dr. Carter disagreed. "If we do nothing, they will die. And one day, those same invaders might come for us." That argument changed the direction of the alliance. A secret project was approved, Project Dawn. Its mission to help the Velarans prepare to reclaim their homeworld. But this time, with humanity's help, Aaron and his crew were moved to a new facility deep in the Nevada desert, where human scientists and soldiers worked together. There they trained, built, and learned side by side. At first, the Velarans struggled with Earth's gravity and human ways of doing things, but they adapted quickly. They learned human combat techniques, studied new ship designs, and watched documentaries about Earth's history, wars, victories, mistakes. Aaron often sat alone at night, watching old footage of human soldiers fighting for freedom. He saw something familiar in their eyes: pain, loss, but also unbreakable spirit. One evening, as the sun set over the desert, Aaron stood outside the facility, watching the horizon glow red. Dr. Carter joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. She offered one, even though she knew Velarans didn't drink it. "You know," she said with a small smile, "we humans don't always get along with each other either. But when someone threatens what we care about, we fight back hard." Aaron looked at her and nodded. Then maybe we are not so different after all. Their friendship became the foundation of trust between the two species. Humans began to see the Velarans not as aliens, but as survivors, beings who had lost everything and still found the strength to hope. And the Velarans saw humans as more than just helpers. They were teachers, warriors, and friends. By the end of that year, small teams of humans and Velerans were working on joint ships, blending alien elegance with human toughness. The new designs were faster, stronger, and built for battle if necessary. Though Earth's leaders still called it a peace project, everyone knew what it truly was: the beginning of preparation. Aaron often thought about his people still scattered across space, hiding or dying on ruined worlds. He promised himself that one day they would go home, but this time they wouldn't go alone. As he looked out at the stars one night, he whispered quietly to himself, "We came to Earth for mercy, but they are giving us something greater, strength, and somewhere deep in space, far beyond Earth's blue skies, the Dravok Empire continued its conquests, unaware that a new alliance was being born, one that would soon come knocking on their doors, not as beggars but as warriors." Months passed, and the bond between humans and Velerans grew stronger with every sunrise. What began as an act of mercy had turned into something much greater, a true alliance built on trust, respect, and shared pain. Both species had lost so much in their histories, and both understood what it meant to fight for survival. The humans, driven by curiosity and courage, opened their research centers, military academies, and laboratories to their new allies. The Velarans, once proud scholars and scientists, found themselves learning again, this time from a race that had mastered the art of endurance. At the Nevada facility, life had changed completely. What used to be a quiet desert base was now alive with activity day and night. Engineers worked on starship blueprints. Pilots trained in simulators that mimicked space battles. Scientists tested new energy systems that combined Valeran crystal technology with human nuclear power. The sound of engines and voices echoed through the metallic halls. It was the sound of hope being built piece by piece. Commander Aaron had become the link between both worlds. He attended meetings with Earth generals, scientists, and diplomats, explaining Veleran knowledge in simple terms while learning about human tactics and military history. He was fascinated by how humans used emotion as a weapon, turning fear into courage and loss into strength. "You humans," Aaron once said to Dr. Helen Carter, "you fight even when the odds are against you. My people forgot how to do that." Helen smiled and replied, "Maybe that's why fate brought you to us, to remind both our worlds what we can do when we refuse to give up." Training the Velarans was not easy at first. They were intelligent and calm but had never been soldiers in the true sense. They were thinkers, builders, and diplomats, not fighters, but the humans were patient teachers. At dawn, drills began: running, combat simulation, teamwork exercises. Human instructors like Captain Rivera taught them how to move in groups, how to fight in zero gravity, how to use instinct when logic failed. "War is not only about skill," Rivera often said. "It's about the heart. You fight to protect what matters." Lyra, the young Veleran scientist, struggled the most in training. Her body was weaker than most, and she often failed the combat tests. One day, after collapsing from exhaustion, she sat on the cold ground, breathing heavily. A human soldier named Mark knelt beside her and handed her water. "You don't give up, do you?" he asked. She shook her head. "I can't," she whispered. "My people are counting on me." Mark smiled. "Then get up. We'll do it together." From that day, something changed in her. The Velarans began to understand that humans weren't strong because of their weapons. They were strong because they never left anyone behind. While the Velarans learned the art of battle, Earth scientists learned the secrets of Veleran technology. The energy crystals the Velerans brought were unlike anything humans had seen. They pulsed with living energy, capable of powering massive ships without pollution or decay. Dr. Carter and her team worked day and night to merge this technology with human systems. After months of experiments, they succeeded in building the first hybrid ship, a vessel made from human steel and Veleran light. It was called Unity 1. When Unity 1 lifted off for its first test flight, the entire base watched in silence. The engines roared softly, glowing with blue and silver light. As it rose into the sky, leaving a trail of energy behind, a cheer erupted. For a moment, everyone felt it. This was not just a ship. It was a symbol. Two species, once strangers, had created something together that neither could have built alone. But even in this growing hope, darkness lingered. The Dravok Empire was still out there, and their spies were everywhere. Through intercepted transmissions, Earth discovered that the Dravoks were aware of the Velaran survivors. They had begun searching for them across nearby systems, destroying any planet that might have offered them shelter. It was only a matter of time before they turned their eyes toward Earth. During one meeting, General Roberts spoke with a hard expression. "We can't wait for them to come to us. If they find this planet, it'll be war." Aaron stood up, his voice steady. "Then we take the war to them." The room went silent. Dr. Carter looked at him in shock. "Aaron, are you sure?" He nodded slowly. "My people have already lost one home. I won't let Earth become the second." And so Project Dawn entered a new phase, one not just about rebuilding but preparing for battle. Human engineers designed weapons and defenses based on Velaran energy systems. Velaran scientists improved human spacecraft shields, making them capable of withstanding direct plasma strikes. Every day brought progress and risk. Accidents happened. Machines exploded. Test pilots were injured. But no one stopped. Failure had become fuel. Aaron often visited the hangars late at night. He would stand before the half-built ships, his reflection glowing in their metallic surfaces. Sometimes he spoke softly to himself. "We were not made for war," he would say. "But maybe we were made for this fight." He knew that even if the Velarans succeeded, their homeworld would never be the same. Still, he believed that honor was worth rebuilding for. The Velarans who survived began sending signals to the hidden colonies scattered across the stars. One by one, small groups responded. Families, soldiers, and scientists from other parts of the galaxy began their journeys to Earth. Within months, hundreds of Velarans arrived. The humans welcomed them, providing food, shelter, and safety. For the first time since their planet's fall, the Velarans felt like a nation again, just not on their own world. As the new Velarans arrived, Earth's culture also began to change. People started to see beyond their differences. Human children waved at Velaran visitors in the streets. Artists painted murals of the two species working side by side. Music blended alien tones with human instruments. Humanity's view of the universe had expanded. They were no longer alone. One evening, Aaron stood before a crowd of both humans and Velarans. The stars shone bright above the desert as he spoke. "Once we came to this planet begging for help. We had nothing left. But humanity didn't give us pity, they gave us strength. Together we will rise. Together we will make sure no world suffers like ours did." His voice was powerful, filled with conviction. The crowd erupted in applause. Dr. Carter watched him from the side, tears in her eyes. She had seen the Velarans arrive as refugees, broken and hopeless. Now they stood proud, wearing uniforms, speaking of freedom and unity. "They're becoming warriors," she whispered. "Human warriors in spirit." But not all moments were joyful. The pressure of constant work and preparation began to weigh heavily on everyone. Accidents in the labs caused tension. Political leaders debated whether Earth should involve itself in another world's war. Some feared that helping the Velarans would invite destruction upon humanity. "You're turning Earth into a target," one senator warned during a meeting. Aaron listened quietly, then said, "We were your target once when you feared us, but you chose to trust instead. That trust is what makes you human. Don't lose it now." His words silenced the room. Months turned into a year, and Earth's alliance with the Velarans became stronger than ever. The hybrid fleet grew, and Unity 1 was joined by Dawnfire and Eclipse Wing. The Velarans trained relentlessly, combining their precision with human instinct. They learned to pilot ships under stress, to coordinate strikes, and to adapt fast. Humans, in return, learned patience and discipline from their alien friends. It was no longer just about preparing for war. It was about becoming something new together. Late one night, as the last training session ended, Lyra stood beside Mark, watching the stars. "Do you think we'll ever win?" she asked. Mark smiled faintly. "We don't fight because we're sure to win. We fight because it's the right thing to do." She looked at him and nodded. That was something humans understood better than anyone. The fight for what's right, no matter the cost. Back in the command center, Dr. Carter watched the radar maps of nearby star systems. She could see the Dravok fleet expanding, conquering, moving closer. Time was running out. She turned to Aaron and said, "When they come, we'll be ready." Aaron looked at the glowing screens, then at her. "No," he said firmly. "When they come, we won't be waiting. We'll already be on our way." And in that moment, Earth's destiny shifted. Humanity, once divided by its own struggles, had found a new purpose among the stars. The Velarans, once victims, were now learning to become heroes. Together, they were no longer two separate species. They were a single force, forged in loss but driven by hope. The fire of war had once destroyed the Valaran world. Now under Earth's sky that same fire was being reborn, not as destruction but as determination. The Alliance had found its heartbeat, and it was ready to echo through the stars. The months of preparation finally began to show results. The Valarans, who had arrived on Earth as fragile survivors, were no longer the same beings who had left their dying homeworld. The time spent training, learning human strategies, and working side by side with Earth's best engineers had changed them. Their once tentative steps had become confident strides. They moved with precision, their bodies and minds strengthened not only by their own species' resilience but also by the lessons they had absorbed from humanity. They were becoming warriors. Each day, training intensified. The Valarans practiced combat drills that combined their natural agility with human tactical methods. Human instructors taught them how to anticipate attacks, how to coordinate fleet maneuvers, and how to respond to ambushes. Early mistakes were frequent. Valarans misjudged distances in zero gravity, collided with each other during mock battles, and struggled to control their weapons. But every failure became a lesson. Captain Rivera, one of the human trainers, would gather the trainees afterward. "Every mistake is a step toward victory," he said. "You learn, you adapt, you survive. That is the difference between those who fight and those who lose." Commander Aaron observed these exercises closely. He had once thought that war would corrupt the Valarans, that the fire of battle might consume their minds. But he saw something different. Each challenge made them sharper, more determined, and more united. Their people, who had once been scattered, weak, and fearful, were now developing a new identity, one that combined Valaran intelligence and humanity's courage. Aaron could feel pride swelling in his chest. For the first time since the fall of their world, he allowed himself to believe that victory might be possible. The human instructors were equally impressed. They had trained soldiers before, but the Valarans were unlike anyone they had encountered. Their bodies were lighter and more flexible than humans, allowing them to perform acrobatic maneuvers in ways that seemed impossible. Their minds were quick, able to calculate multiple variables at once, and their memory allowed them to recall detailed strategies instantly. Humans had something the Valarans lacked: raw instinct, bravery, and the willingness to push beyond physical limits despite exhaustion. By combining these strengths, the instructors realized they were not merely training soldiers. They were creating a new breed of warrior. Aaron's team was divided into squads, each paired with human counterparts. Lyra, who had struggled during early drills, became one of the standout members of her group. Under the guidance of Mark, her human trainer, she learned to merge her Valaran agility with human timing and strategy. The drills were grueling, sometimes lasting hours without rest, and the Valarans pushed themselves harder than anyone expected. "Pain is temporary," Mark told her one day as she fell to her knees from exhaustion. "Victory lasts forever." Lyra repeated the words to herself, feeling a fire ignite within her. She would not allow herself to fail. Not now, not ever. Meanwhile, engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to perfect the hybrid ships. The first of these vessels, Unity 1, had proven successful, and the designs were being scaled up. Ships were reinforced with Valaran energy shields and human armor plating. Weapon systems were upgraded to incorporate Valaran plasma technology alongside human projectile mechanics. Each new ship was a marvel, a symbol of collaboration between species. Aaron often walked among the engineers, marveling at what had been achieved. "This is more than machinery," he said one evening. "This is hope made real." The Valarans also began to participate in simulated battles against holographic fleets. These exercises were intense, designed to mimic every possible scenario they might encounter when facing the Dravok Empire. Sometimes the Valarans were initially overwhelmed, struggling to anticipate the speed and unpredictability of the attacks. But with every exercise they adapted. By the end of several weeks they could maneuver as if they were a single organism, anticipating the actions of their teammates and reacting with incredible speed. The humans watched in awe as these alien warriors demonstrated instincts that even human pilots found difficult to replicate. It wasn't just physical training that mattered. Mental resilience was equally important. The Valarans had suffered trauma unlike anything humans could fully comprehend. Nights were spent in counseling and meditation, guided by both human psychologists and Valaran elders. They shared stories of loss, of planets burning, of families torn apart. Each session was painful but necessary. As the Valarans confronted their grief, they found strength in each other. Commander Aaron encouraged them constantly, reminding them that their past did not define them. "We have all lost," he said, "but we can choose what we do next. We can choose to rise." Gradually, the Valarans began to take initiative in their training. They devised new maneuvers, combining their knowledge of alien technology with human strategy. Aaron watched with a mix of astonishment and pride as his people invented formations that even experienced human commanders had not considered. "You are ready," he whispered to himself, realizing that the transformation was nearly complete. The bond between humans and Valarans went beyond training. They ate together, shared stories, and celebrated small victories. Even in moments of levity, trust was built. One night, under the desert stars, Lyra laughed as she taught a group of human engineers how to perform a Valaran ritual dance. A dance meant to honor bravery and courage. Humans stumbled and fell, but they laughed along with her. These moments were as important as any drill, reinforcing the connection between species. However, the threat of the Dravok Empire never left their minds. Intelligence reports indicated that the enemy was expanding their territory, destroying planets in their path. The urgency of preparation was constant. Aaron knew that when the day came, the Valarans and humans would face an enemy far stronger than anything they had encountered. But he also knew that the alliance they had built, the strength they had forged together, could make the difference between survival and extinction. Dr. Carter and her team continued to refine the hybrid fleet, adding new capabilities daily. Ships could now deploy advanced shields that absorbed incoming fire and converted it into energy for their own weapons. Communication systems allowed Valaran and human crews to coordinate flawlessly, even across light years. Aaron often watched as young Valarans practiced piloting these ships in simulators, their faces filled with concentration and determination. "They are learning faster than I imagined," he told Dr. Carter. "Soon they will be ready for anything." The first joint fleet exercises began in low Earth orbit. Human and Valaran ships moved together, practicing formations, evading attacks, and coordinating maneuvers. The sight was awe-inspiring. Silver Valaran ships gliding effortlessly alongside heavier human vessels, moving as one unit. Commander Aaron felt a surge of pride. For the first time, he truly believed that his people could reclaim their homeworld and protect the galaxy from future threats. At night, Aaron often walked alone on the observation deck, gazing at the stars. Memories of the Valaran homeworld haunted him. The fires, the screams, the destruction. But now, he also saw hope in the distant lights of Earth's cities, in the determined faces of his people, and in the unwavering support of the humans. "We are ready," he whispered. "We are no longer the victims of fate. We are the storm that will return." The human leaders, while cautious, began to acknowledge the progress. General Roberts visited the training grounds, observing the Valarans execute complex combat simulations. He had seen many elite forces, but the combination of Valaran precision and human adaptability was unlike anything he had encountered. "They are more than ready," he said to Dr. Carter. "If we go to war with the Dravoks, these warriors could turn the tide." Even as confidence grew, humility remained. The Valarans remembered their losses and knew the price of underestimating an enemy. Commander Aaron reminded his people constantly, "We fight with strength, but we fight with caution. Our enemies are ruthless. They have destroyed worlds before. We must not forget what is at stake." The final months of preparation were filled with intensity. Every day Valarans practiced until their muscles ached. Their minds raced and their bodies screamed for rest. Humans pushed themselves just as hard. By the end, the Alliance had forged something extraordinary, a force of beings who were not merely surviving but evolving. The Valarans were no longer just refugees or scholars. They were pilots, soldiers, strategists, and warriors. They had fire in their hearts and skill in their hands, ready to face the greatest challenge of their lives. Then one evening, Aaron stood before the assembled fleet and training squads. The stars sparkled above the desert, a reminder of the vast universe waiting beyond. "We have trained. We have adapted. We have learned from our past and from our friends," he said. "Now the time is coming. Our homeworld awaits. When we go together, stronger than ever before. Today we are no longer the lost. We are the rising. We are the storm they will never expect." A cheer rose from the assembled humans and Valarans, echoing into the night. It was not just a sound, it was the heartbeat of a new era. For the first time since the fall of the Valaran world, hope burned brightly. and the spark of war was tempered with purpose. The Alliance was no longer preparing to survive. They were preparing to reclaim, to fight, and to win. In the silence that followed, Aaron looked to the horizon, imagining their fleet leaving Earth, crossing the stars, and facing the Dravok Empire. "We are ready," he whispered, "and nothing will stop us now." The fire within the Valarans, once nearly extinguished, had been rekindled, and under the guidance of humanity, it had grown into a blaze that would soon sweep across the universe. The day finally came when the Valaran fleet was ready to leave Earth. The ships gleamed in the sunlight, their silver and blue hulls polished to perfection, reflecting months of tireless work, countless failures, and the combined knowledge of two worlds. What had once been a desperate group of survivors had now transformed into a disciplined, powerful, and unified force. Commander Aaron walked along the main hangar, watching his people move with confidence, checking weapons systems and performing final preparations. The air was filled with excitement, tension, and a quiet pride. This was the moment they had trained for, the day they would return to their homeworld not as refugees, but as warriors ready to reclaim what had been lost. Humans were everywhere, overseeing last-minute adjustments and providing support. Dr. Carter moved among the engineers, ensuring the hybrid technology systems were fully operational. Even though Earth would not be fighting directly, the humans felt like part of the fleet, sharing in the responsibility of what was about to happen. The Valarans, in turn, expressed deep gratitude. No words could fully capture what humanity had done for them, not just saving their lives, but rebuilding their confidence, their courage, and their identity. As the fleet ascended from Earth's orbit, Commander Aaron addressed his people over the intercom. "For months we have trained, studied, and prepared. We have faced fear, pain, and doubt. But now we are not the Valarans who fled our world. We are stronger. We are ready. We fight not for revenge, but to restore what was taken from us and to honor those who could not survive. Today we rise together, as one people, guided by the lessons of humanity." The first jump through hyperspace was both thrilling and nerve-wracking. The Valaran pilots had trained extensively, but nothing could fully replicate the feeling of moving through the void at incredible speed. Outside the cockpit, stars stretched into brilliant streaks of light, and the sense of vastness weighed heavily on them. Many pilots remembered their homeworld, the oceans, the forests, the cities that had been reduced to ash. That memory fueled them, reminding them why this mission was so important. When the fleet approached the Valaran system, the first sight of their homeworld brought a mix of emotions. What remained of their cities lay in ruins, oceans were poisoned, and forests burned from previous attacks. The Dravok Empire had not been idle. Their outposts were fortified, their ships patrolling the skies, confident that no survivors could return to challenge them. The Valarans could feel the weight of this moment. It was no longer a simulation. This was real. Commander Aaron took a deep breath and addressed his fleet once more. "We have been forged in fire, trained by humans, and strengthened by our own determination. Today we are no longer the hunted. We are the storm. We will strike with precision, with unity, and with everything we have learned. We fight for our families, our people, and our future. Let us go home." The battle began with swift, coordinated attacks. Valaran ships moved in perfect formation, using the hybrid technology developed with humans to evade Dravok fire. Plasma cannons and human-engineered projectiles combined in synchronized strikes that shattered enemy vessels. The Dravoks were surprised. They had assumed any survivors would be weak, scattered, or desperate. They had not anticipated a fleet that was disciplined, smart, and driven by determination. Human strategy had been a critical part of this success. Valaran pilots executed maneuvers that mirrored lessons learned from Earth's history of warfare: coordinated flanking, baiting enemies into traps, and exploiting weak points in enemy defenses. The integration of Valaran agility and human tactical thinking created a force unlike anything the Dravoks had ever encountered. Ships twisted and turned in ways that defied conventional combat strategies, striking fear into their enemies. On the ground, the first retaken cities were met with cheers. Survivors hidden from the Dravoks for years watched in awe as the returning fleet destroyed occupation forces. Children ran into the streets, embracing the Valarans who had survived the long years of exile. The sight of their warriors, trained and confident, reminded the Valarans why they had endured so much. This was not just a fight, it was the reclaiming of their identity, their honor, and their home. Aaron himself led the Central Strike Team. His ship, the Unity 1, cut through enemy defenses with precision. Lyra piloted the wing next to him, executing complex maneuvers they had perfected in countless simulations. They had learned to trust each other completely, anticipating movements, predicting enemy responses, and communicating seamlessly without hesitation. Every command, every maneuver, reflected the months of training on Earth and the lessons they had learned from suffering. Despite the chaos of battle, the Valarans remained disciplined. No unnecessary risks were taken. Every action was calculated, precise, and coordinated. The Dravoks, confident in their superiority, were caught off guard by the unity of this fleet. Slowly, their numbers began to dwindle. Ships that had once terrorized the Valarans now burned in the cold void of space. The tide of battle had turned. When the central cities were secured, the Valarans began rebuilding. Human advisors assisted from afar, providing knowledge on reconstructing infrastructure and restoring essential systems. The survivors of Velaran colonies slowly returned to their homes, guided by the courage and resilience of those who had fought. Families reunited, children laughed again, and the Valarans began to envision a future beyond war. Even the Dravok leadership realized they had underestimated the alliance. Their communications were intercepted, revealing shock and disbelief. They had assumed that the Valarans would never rise again. They had not counted on humanity's guidance, the determination of survivors, or the power of combined strength. This realization sent fear through their ranks, further tipping the balance of power. As the final battles ended, Commander Aaron called a pause in the fighting. The Valarans gathered to honor those who had fallen during exile, during training, and in battle. They lit memorial fires across the reclaimed cities, each flame a symbol of resilience and hope. Aaron addressed the crowd, his voice steady and proud. "We have returned not only to fight, but to rebuild. We honor those who were lost, and we pledge to protect what remains. Today we are free. Today we are whole again." The victory was complete, but the Valarans knew that peace would require constant effort. The Dravok Empire remained a threat in distant systems, and the scars of war would take time to heal. Yet for the first time, the Valarans felt the possibility of a future not dominated by fear. They had survived, learned, and risen stronger than before, and they knew that without the humans who had stood beside them, none of this would have been possible. Messages were sent back to Earth expressing gratitude beyond words. Commander Aaron's message was simple yet filled with emotion. "Humanity did not save us with pity or charity. You reminded us how to fight, how to hope, and how to rise. You stood with us when no one else would. We return to you as partners, not as beggars, and we will honor your trust with our strength." Back on Earth, Dr. Carter read the message aloud to a group of officials and scientists. Tears filled her eyes. For years she had seen the Valarans arrive broken and afraid. Now they had returned victorious, stronger than anyone had imagined. Humanity's role had been critical, but the greatest achievement was the Valarans' own courage and determination. They had taken what they had learned, applied it, and transformed themselves into heroes of their own story. In the weeks that followed, the Valarans began rebuilding their civilization. Cities were restored, energy systems repaired, and forests replanted. The hybrid technology shared with humans allowed them to create a sustainable and advanced society. Children learned both Valaran traditions and the lessons of Earth, growing up with knowledge that cooperation and courage were equally important. Aaron stood on the highest tower of the restored capital, looking at the horizon where the sun rose over oceans and cities. He felt a profound sense of accomplishment, but also humility. They had survived impossible odds. They had fought and reclaimed their home. Yet he knew that the bond with humanity would continue to shape their future. The story of their survival, their rise, and their victory would not only be a lesson for Valarans, but for the universe. At night, he often looked up at the stars, thinking of the humans who had stood beside them. Somewhere out there, Earth waited, a blue beacon of hope. And in the quiet of those moments, Aaron whispered a vow to his people. "We will protect our home, honor our past, and never forget those who helped us rise. We are free, we are strong, and we will endure." The Valarans had gone from desperate survivors to a proud, powerful force. They had faced loss, learned from humans, and trained to reclaim their destiny. In doing so, they proved something timeless. That strength comes not from fear, but from unity, courage, and the will to rise against impossible odds. The battle was over, but the story of their resilience would echo across the stars forever.